We got 7 different Bumblebees here, and one big question. Which one is the best for collectors? Let's find out. Starting off with Legacy Bumblebee from Transformers Animated, a show widely regarded as being one of the best Transformers shows of all time, which if we're being honest is a pretty low bar since most Transformers media isn't actually that good. I am excited to take a look at this figure. Nothing feels cheap here. I was expecting Bumblebee to feel a bit light since he is a pretty small figure, but no, he's got some decent weight to him. And when I say this figure is small, I mean he is slightly larger than a core class. Here he is next to core class of Grimlock and Optimus Prime, and some other figures I'll forget what to throw in it when editing. Now him being tiny is a good thing. Bumblebee is a small dude, and he was small in the animated show. And for how teeny tiny he is a surprisingly good and well engineered figure. In terms of accuracy, he looks accurate enough. He's definitely a lot bulkier than his animated counterpart, but I think it looks good here. It also doesn't feel like he's been as G1ified as much as animated Optimus was, which was a problem I had with that figure. Don't get me wrong though, that is still a pretty good figure, and this Bumblebee pairs really well with him.
I love you guys so much.
However, I do feel like this is a better toy-to-show representation, while also being a modernized version of the character. I do find his jetpack accessory to be a little bit interesting. I'll get more to that later. Now, his head clearly sticks out to me as animated Bumblebee. It's got the iconic shape from the Transformers animated show. He still has those horns and a black outline at the top, as well as around the face. Some very bright blue eyes. I really like that. And some silver for the face. You also get his smirk, which is a nice touch. So Bumblebee's head is on a ball joint, so it can look up and down, but when you try to do that, there's a hinge joint back here for the transformation. So if you do want to make his head look up, you kind of need to push forward while bringing his head up. Why is this so tough to do? It can't spin around, and it is very tight. Coming down to the chest piece, there is a problem there. As you can see, it is a translucent plastic. Same over here with this back piece. It is painted yellow and black, and the paint matching on here is done pretty well. You can still tell it's paint though. That was the first thing I noticed when I looked at it in the packaging. And having his entire chest piece be a translucent ooh, that's a tough word, tough word to say. Having his entire chest piece be a translucent plastic does kind of worry me. Like even the sections where the hinges are a translucent plastic. I am more worried about this translucent plastic than my ability to stay sober at an anime convention. It would have been nice if this was casted in maybe a black color with yellow painted on, or perhaps a yellow plastic with black painted on for the windows. I wouldn't mind having blacked out windows for this figure, because with it being translucent, you can kind of see his insides. Another interesting thing is that unlike the original animated Bumblebee figure, this one has the black stripe on the right side, or the left side, which is the correct side, while the animated figure had it on the left side. The shoulders are done pretty well, accurate to the show. The wheels on them are also accurate to the show. Now coming down to the rest of his arms, we do have a door for the vehicle mode, and a little bit of nice detail on the figure, but not a whole lot. We can move it out to the side. It does not spin a full 360. It goes up to about right over there. There is a joint over here as well, and we can bring it back about right over there. We do get a bicep rotation, an elbow bend, and some hand rotation. That is very tight. This door can open all the way like that, so we can flip in his hands as part of the transformation and for the accessories, which we will get to later. Coming down to the legs, these are sculpted very nicely. Now over here, the stripe is on the wrong leg. It's over here on this side, if you do care about that animation accuracy, or if you're a nerd. I also find the legs to be a little bit bulkier than the animated show. That animation stylization isn't here, but it does work well with the rest of the figure. The entire figure is a bit more blocky than the original toy and the Transformers show. I still find myself liking it, and like I said earlier, it doesn't feel too G1ified. I feel like I do go back and forth on the whole, oh, it should be G1 and it shouldn't be G1. Here's the thing, I'm an idiot, okay? Anyways, as I was saying, the legs do look pretty good, and we do have the wheels on the side. We also have some 5mm ports, which do show up in the vehicle mode and will look kind of ugly when we get to that. We do have some knee pads for this guy, which is really nice. We do get some waist rotation, legs out to the side, forward, knee bend, and back over there. Now his feet are done in a very interesting manner. In addition to being lickable, in this show, the feet are the front of the car mode, and we do have the front of the car mode sculpted here on his feet, but if we turn the figure around, we have the actual front of the car mode, and I find that to be an interesting choice. If these on the back were at the front, it probably would have made his feet look big, which is probably why they went with this design instead. Still, it's kind of weird to have the front of the vehicle mode mode on both sides of the figure technically. We do get some foot pivot and some back and forth. And here's the back of the figure. We do have some nice detailing over here. And luckily he doesn't really have that big of a backpack. It's just kind of this thing over here for the vehicle mode. I am really impressed with the robot mode on this figure. Now let's move on to the accessories. So we get these two clear plastic pieces for his boosters, and then we get some drill bits. The boosters or jetpacks, whatever you call them, it's been a while since I've seen this show. They are sculpted very nicely. However, I don't really understand why they are a translucent plastic. They do feel sturdy though. This goes on... It's very hard reading my script right now. They do feel sturdy though, and they go on the back of the figure, just like so. We also get these two drill bits. Now the way to put these on are, we can either open this up, bring in the hand, and somehow put the drill on. Oh, this is a little tough to do. Oh, I'm struck. Okay. Oh boy. We can... oh no. It goes on like that, as you can see. Alternatively, the instructions say to put it on like this. Why is this so tough to do? And we can put it on like so. And we can put them on the back like this and have these pieces be sort of effects pieces for the boosters. It's very refreshing to see a Bumblebee figure that looks like this. There's a lot of Bumblebee figures out there that look realistic because of the movies. To transform Bumblebee, the first thing we want to do is come to the feet and flip these in. Now we can untab his chest piece and flip that over, connecting it up at the top. Open these panels at the feet over here, bring that in, bring in his foot, rotate that around. Same with this one, open that up, bring in the foot, close that in, rotate this around. Come to the other side, close both of these in and tab them together, which, oh, nope, that wasn't supposed to happen. It's being a little tricky. Rotate the waist 180 degrees, unhinge the figure from the back, and it might be tight the first time around. Let's move this out of the way so that way we can bring this down, and the windshield does need to tab into these slots over here, so go ahead and do that. We probably need to adjust that later. We can leave this down there for now. We can come over to the arms, open that flap up, bring in the hand, and leave that flap there for now. Come over here, do the same thing, open that up, flip that in, and leave that there for now. So this part of the arm can be a little tricky. Let's make sure it's hinged out like that. We can rotate the arm this way, and rotate the shoulders to where it is like this. Bring that up, bring that in over there. Adjust that properly into place, rotate it up, and bring it into the side. Now it's just a matter of adjusting everything. We can come to this back, and that does slot in over there on both sides. So go ahead. Haha. And make sure you can get it to snap into place. And without the pieces falling off, making sure everything is in the proper place. And here is the vehicle mode for a Bumblebee. I will say for a pretty small deluxe class figure, he does have quite a bit of a complex transformation. I wouldn't call it a difficult transformation though. I really do like the vehicle mode for Bumblebee. It's a very nice and cute looking car. However, there are a few downsides to it. So mainly from the top and front, it looks good. I love the black racing stripe going down the side and this red light thingy here that is a translucent red plastic. I like how the front section is with the silver headlight and the grille piece painted in black. I like how the wheels are done and the rims on them. And from the underneath, everything does look very nice and compact. Now what I don't like is how he looks from the side. That's where I feel like the figure kind of falls apart, especially with these two ports over here. Mainly the one here at the front is the ugliest looking one, and that hinge doesn't help either. I definitely feel like if this port wasn't there, it would help make this vehicle mode look a bit cleaner. And the rest of the side doesn't look too great. Maybe if you can get everything to line up perfectly, it'll look better, and I accidentally undid that. Whoops. Now the back of the vehicle mode does look pretty plain. There's no paint at all over here, and you can even see some taillight detail going on. It would be nice if that was painted in, because this back does look very, very plain. But overall, I think it's a pretty passable vehicle mode. It's so much smaller when compared to other vehicles that are in the deluxe class scale, because once again, he is Bumblebee and he is a smaller character. As a collector, this figure is worth buying. 3D series Bumblebee is a figure that I was surprised some people didn't take a liking to. One of the main things I read online were complaints about how the vehicle mode looks. I will get into that later in the video because I think it looks fine, and there is a specific reason I think it looks like this. People were really expecting this to look like a Volkswagen and have a Volkswagen license. Honestly, I'm not really sure why people were expecting that on this figure. This does not need a Volkswagen license because it's not supposed to technically be a Volkswagen. It's supposed to be a G1 Bumblebee. Listen, I'll get more into that later on in the video, so make sure to stick around. But first, let's start focusing on the bot mode here. So people were complaining about the robot mode for this figure. I think it looks fine, but I will say he's a little bit chunky, so he seems to be a pretty fair representation of his animated G1 counterpart, from the classic looking head to the iconic vehicle mode feet. A few liberties were taken here and there. To make this a transformable figure, if you wanted a fully accurate robot mode, you'd have to get the red series, but nobody liked those figures because they didn't transform. I think this is probably the most accurate G1 representation of Bumblebee we've gotten so far in both robot mode and vehicle mode. Yes, even the vehicle mode. Now this figure isn't perfect. A few problems I will address later in the video are basically the color mismatching and the backpack. That's something to talk about. He's also a small figure, which is to be expected. Here he is next to core class Optimus Prime. As you can see, he's just slightly taller. A knockoff Masterpiece Rose Toys RC, that she can't stand right now. Armada Megatron Studio Series Hot Rod, Studio Series Coronation Starscream, Studio Series Rise of the Beast Optimus Prime, Animated Bumblebee, and Rise of the Beast Studio Series Bumblebee. When I first saw this figure, I thought it was going to be a kind of retool of Animated Bumblebee, but it is far from it. The figures are pretty much different. This is an entirely new mold. There are a few design similarities here and there. I mean, they are both Bumblebee. He does have his similarities to Earthrise Bumblebee as well. Unfortunately though, I don't have that figure. I do know that one required parts forming, which this one did not. Here is his G1 blaster, a pretty neat little design painted in a silver color. And before we get into why that vehicle mode looks the way it does, let's take a closer look at the robot mode. Starting with the head. While I do like the way the head sculpt looks, something about it seems to be a bit off. I couldn't figure out why at first, but I kept looking at the figure and staring at it. Then I looked at pictures of Bumblebee online, then the figure again, then the pictures again, then the Roboson Bumblebee, because that looks pretty accurate to the show, then the pictures, and then the figure again, until I realized the head is just slightly too wide, and this angle down over here starts out a little bit low. This top headpiece also is more rectangular and doesn't angle down like it should. This is an inaccurate head sculpt. In all seriousness though, yeah, it's a little bit off. I think something like the Worlds Collide or War for Cybertron head sculpts are a bit better, but honestly this isn't too bad. Okay, now let me talk about that fat back. Damn. Okay, now this is a kaiju level sin. It's not as bad as some previous figures, like the Masterpiece one, but I still have to critique it. While the rest of the figure looks great and is fairly accurate, except for this back piece, I'm just not a big fan of it. However, this is kind of the compromise that had to be made for this to be a transforming figure. So just like the never-ending existential dread we experience, we gotta accept it and move on. Coming to the front again, unlike the Bashojo figure or the Little Bee, this chest is accurately flat, with the Autobot insignia proudly displayed in the middle, just in case you forgot what side he's on. It is a little bit big and pronounced. I feel like he now has that Shockwave big booby thing where he can't see what's underneath him.
No sign of Autobots!
The chest also has some yellow paint, which doesn't really match this piece of plastic, and it might be hard to see on camera, but this yellow piece of plastic doesn't even match that. So for some reason, we got 3 different shades of yellow going on, and I'm not sure why at least this isn't the same color of yellow as the rest of the figure. However, we do get blacked out windows. This is all a plastic colored piece, which is why this is painted yellow. And I do prefer the blacked out windows over having transparent windows in a Transformers figure. Let me know if you agree or not in the comments below. The arms and the legs are pretty simple and blocky, not much to say there, except that on the arms, once again, we do have that lighter yellow color of plastic, which once again really doesn't match the rest of the figure. I'm really not sure why they decided to go with 2 different colors of yellow plastic. Now the feet are accurate as they can be, or should I say, can Bumblebee. Obviously, they're going to look a little bit different from the show so that this can transform. The wheels are much bigger. In the show, they magically shrink along with the rest of the feet, but this looks fine to me. I do like how they put gap fillers here at the bottom. Now, I feel like I may have sounded a bit negative in some aspects of the robot mode, but honestly, this is a really nice figure and I like it. The figure has some pretty standard articulation. The head can spin a full 360 all the way around. Unfortunately, it can't really look up and down that much because of how the head sculpt is designed and how low it is to the rest of the body. These arms are on a ball joint, and they can move out to the side. We can spin this all the way around. We get some bicep rotation, as well as an elbow bend that goes 90 degrees. We get some hand rotation as well. There is waist rotation, but it kind of runs into the back piece over here. Legs can move forward, out to the side, all the way back there. We get a rotation there as well. There is a knee bend, which is kind of hard to do because when you try to bend the knee, this piece bends. So you want to bend it from there, and we get a knee bend over there. We get an ankle pivot, and this can move back and forth because of how the transformation functions. Now let's move on to the vehicle mode, and I'll show the transformation off after that. So this is a neat little vehicle mode, and a lot of people were asking why it doesn't look like a Volkswagen and why they don't have a Volkswagen licensing for the figure. I feel like it's looking a lot more squarish than people expected. None of the Studio Series 86 figures have licensed vehicle modes. These are all based off their G1 counterparts, which had no licensing. So even though a lot of these G1 figures kind of had replica vehicle modes, they were all unlicensed. Oh my god, are G1 figures technically bootleg car toys? And on a technicality in the G1 series, series, Bumblebee turns into a vehicle that resembles a Volkswagen Beetle, and in the show, that vehicle mode tried to squish proportions to match the original G1 toy. This vehicle mode isn't going for that classic Beetle look at all. What I'm saying here is that this is trying to be more accurate to the original G1 show as well as the original toy. There's still differences here and there, but hopefully you can see what I mean. Also, car companies are very strict about how licensed products look. They generally need to have proportions that match to their actual counterparts. An actual Beetle is going to be longer, and the vehicle mode in the show is more squished to align with the original toy, which once again is Beetle inspired. Volkswagen probably would not want licensing on something that doesn't look almost exactly like a Volkswagen. Although you could argue that the MP45 kinda did that and still had the licensing. But that's also trying to be more realistic than this figure, which isn't going for realism in my opinion. This picture is a good example of how the proportions of the toy line up with the show. Obviously not 100%, and the image to the front is a bit more round. However, I will admit and say it would be nice if this vehicle mode was just slightly more round. The figure also has a larger wheel in the back, which isn't depicted in this image, but you can see the larger rear wheels in other parts of the show, and the wheels are like that on the original toy. The show didn't really have much consistency in animation, but it can help give us a general idea, you know? I think after the Bumblebee movie and some of the Volkswagen licensed figures, people kind of forgot that the original G1 vehicle mode had more penny racer proportions. So what am I basically trying to say here? I really don't know anymore at this point. I was basically just trying to provide arguments for why this isn't a licensed Volkswagen. Am I an idiot? Am I right? I don't know. If you agree or disagree with me, let me know in the comments below. Do I sound insane? So this top area over here is flat because this forms the chest for the robot mode, which is supposed to be flat to be accurate to the G1 show. As we saw for the original vehicle mode, sometimes it varies in the show to where it's round or to where it's flat. The Autobot insignia is still going to be there, which is not like the show, but how it's like on the original toy. There's no way for that to disappear when transforming. There's an Autobot insignia here, which kind of just magically appears during the transformation. As you can see here, it's hidden away underneath the bot mode in the feet. That is such a cool little trick of engineering. And once again, because of the 3 different shades of yellow, there is a lot of color mismatch here, which I do think is unfortunate. The wheels do look nice and simple though, accurate to the show, and all 4 of them are pinned on, so it can roll around pretty easily. That's very fun to do. Nice bumper at the front with silver painted taillights, and over here at the back we have some red painted taillights with the rear bumper. And once again, I do prefer the blacked out windows. Now time for the transformation. Now transforming the figure is actually fairly simple. Now I really like the engineering they did on this figure to get it to transform. It is pretty impressive. First thing, we're going to start over here with that back piece, push it in slightly from down here so that way it untabs at the top so we can bring it up. We take this chest piece and take that out. Next we're going to want to take the head and bring that all the way down in there like that and bring this back over there. Once that's in, we can now close the chest piece. We're going to take the arms, bend them at a 90-degree angle. Same with this one. Take this out, flip that around, take this out and flip that around as well. Come back here to the feet, open these up on both sides. We're going to take this flap out as well as this flap, and then we're going to bring these feet back in there. We can now take these flaps and bring them in, connecting them back over there. Same over here with this one. We're going to unhinge the figure from here and make sure it connects to there. And we're not going to connect the legs yet. I like to do that later. But now we are going to bring this leg up and we're going to shift this like so to where that Autobot insignia is now out. We'll grab this from here and try to bring it back all the way in here so that way it lines up. Now we're going to want to do the same with this leg, bend that this way and bringing the leg all the way over here. And now we can connect this from the front and make sure it lines up over here as well. There we go. We can now take these wheel pieces and bring them in. Same over here on this side. Make sure these are lined up properly and they do tab in together over here. So let's go ahead and tab that so it doesn't move around. And now we can take the back piece, push it in and try to get it to line up over there. Make sure everything lines up properly. And here we have Bumblebee in his vehicle mode. This is also a figure you need to have in your collection. Transformers One Bumblebee, that's not it. Transformers One Bumblebee is a simple, neat little figure from the animated movie. He's got a pretty decent robot mode and an alt mode that kind of reminds me of the Studio Series B127 figure. In fact, even the bot mode kind of reminds me of the Studio Series figure, along with the transformation. He comes with a few accessories and a neat little thing hidden away in his chest, which we will get to later on in the video. Aesthetically, this figure looks alright. Like, it's not something super amazing, but it's not bad either. It's a fair representation of what's in the movie, and I think it gets the job done there. I do think it's a bit bulkier than the movie, however. The movie proportions seem to be a lot slimmer, like kind of in the chest area as well as the waist area, and definitely the legs and the feet. This guy's got big feet, like mommy step on me feet.
Okay.
The type of person at an anime convention with the "I'll step on you for $5" sign. Actually, I think he might be the guy who's going to be asked to be stepped on. Not saying this is a complaint, it can't be the exact same proportions as the film if this needs to transform into a vehicle and have a simple 15 steps to it. Since this is a cheaper figure, we do have some hollow spots in the upper arms over here, as well as the back of the arms, and some really bad ones on the legs. This is hideous, disgusting, it's awful. It's also necessary for the transformation. The knees are also a little bit loose on this figure, at least on my copy. That is a little bit annoying. Another thing I want to point out is to make sure the legs are fully tabbed in over here, because if it isn't, you will accidentally do this. So make sure it is fully tabbed in all the way. The figure is primarily a yellow plastic, and I'm not seeing any yellow paint on the figure, but we do have black, blue, silver, and gunmetal gray paint throughout it. Definitely helps bring some of the details to life, as this figure doesn't really have a whole lot of detail to it, because this figure is from the mainline movie or the Prime Changers line, and not the Studio Series line. There probably will be a Studio Series figure of this. I mean, it's Bumblebee, so they're definitely going to be making one. And if they don't, I will seem like an idiot in this video in the future. Now for Bumblebee, this figure, he's kind of big. Compared to Orion Pax and Sentinel, he is almost the same height. There's absolutely no scaling between these line of figures, which might be a turnoff for some collectors. Having Bumblebee be the same height as these guys is a little weird. And also, I just noticed he is the only one with an Autobot insignia on him. For more comparisons, here he is with Studio Series Rise of the Beasts, B127, Gamer Edition, the E-Girl Bumblebee, Animated Bumblebee. Now this is a pretty good looking head sculpt with a fair amount of detail on it. Some really nice blue paint for the eyes, a nice silver for the rest of the faceplate, and a little bit of gray over here on the sides. It's definitely a bit of a departure from the classic original G1 aesthetic, and he doesn't have the horns either. He just kind of has these over here. The chest piece is really nice. It's fairly wide, and we do have some black paint going down here with the Autobot insignia on it, some blue paint for the headlights, which we will see in the vehicle mode, and some of that gray metallic paint at the bottom. I feel for a $20 figure that's not in the Studio Series line, this has a fair amount of paint to it, which is really appreciated. Now we can remove the chest piece if I can get that. It's a little tough. I think grab it from here. It's really stuck on there. Okay. It reveals his T-cog underneath. It's fairly well sculpted, and I like the paint on it. Now to my knowledge, there hasn't been a Transformer that comes with a T-cog in the past, but I could be wrong. Let me know in the comments below. Also, this seems to be molded into place. I cannot take it out of the chest, or at least I'm just not able to. Would be kind of cool if you could take this out, but it's not really a big deal. Now one thing I like about for the arms for the design of this figure is that we have the wheels for the vehicle mode on the shoulders, and I feel like they blend in pretty well to the shoulders and the rest of the arms. Once again, we do have that unfortunate hollowness in the figure. Some basic details over here for the rest of the arms with that metallic gray going down, continuing on to the hands. Other than that, there's really not a whole lot of detail going on over here. His waist area, once again, is a little bit bulkier than it is in the movie. This piece is gray plastic, and this seems to be a metallic gray that goes into this yellow bit of plastic over here. And once again, with the legs being pretty hollow, that does kind of throw it off, and I feel like it really cheapens the figure, even though it is at a sort of $20 price point. The legs are a bit bulky, and we do have a little bit of paint over here, which is nice, and we do get some detail over here on the side that is painted in that gray paint, and comes down to the other set of wheels for the vehicle mode. The feet are fairly basic stuff. They're very big, minimum paint on them, but they do help the figure stand pretty well. On the back of the figure, once again, pretty plain, nothing too fancy going on there. He doesn't really have much of a backpack with this folded up section over here, so that is pretty nice. And once again, it does remind me of the B127 figure. And once we get to the transformation, you'll also see how that is similar, but also a more simplified version of the Studio Series transformation. And from the back, these two pieces do kind of stick out, and it kind of looks like he has some tiny wings, which kind of ruin the silhouette of the figure. I kind of wonder if it's supposed to be like that, with these little bits supposed to be acting as thrusters for like a jetpack. I'll be doing a comparison with this figure here in a second, but first let's move on to this figure's accessories. So for one accessory, we get his blaster, fairly basic with simple paint applications. One thing I do like about this is how when you put it on the figure, it's not like he's holding a weapon, it's more so it transforms out of his arms, like we have seen in the past with other Transformers media and figures. We do get his blade, and I do like the blue paint on there. Unfortunately, we just get the one, while in the movie he has two. This can be put onto the blaster, so we can have it like that, or we can put it on separately to either side of his arm, if I can do that properly on camera. Please just work with me here. I did it before. There we go. We can have it like that. Hopefully the Studio Series figure comes with two of these, so we can have one on each arm. For this figure's articulation, we do get some up and down movement. We get a 360 rotation over there. These arms can move out to the side, but if you move him out too much, that will happen. And as you can see, it's on a ball joint. You can get a full 360 rotation there, bicep rotation, an elbow bend, which goes about 90 degrees. No hand rotation. This is only a $20 figure. We get some waist rotation that goes a full 360. Legs can move forward, out to the side, all the way back there. A knee bend, which goes about right there. And you could utilize this for some extra articulation. And we do get some foot movement, which is mainly used for the transformation. Leg rotation as well. Here he is compared to the Bumblebee B127 figure. I don't know if you guys can see it, but I personally think there are some similarities between these two figures. They both have wheels on the shoulders. They both have these pieces at the back that fold up. However, this one does it a bit better. Over here, it's really bulky. The way this opens back up and the head moves in here is done very similar to how it's done over here. The legs having the wheels on them are pretty much the same as well. Once again, this feels like a more simplified version of this figure, and even those vehicle modes are pretty much the same, which we can move on to the transformation now. So now, while I do find the transformation on this figure to be a bit simple, you might find yourself fighting with it a little bit here and there, and some pieces might end up popping off. But to get started, first we'll come over to the back of the figure. We're going to want to grab this section from here, pull that out, and then rotate the head around, flip the head back in over there to where it's facing up.
Hello!
Now we're just going to close that up and make sure that is snapped into place. The next thing we want to do is come to the waist of the figure. We will rotate that all the way around. Now we can grab the chest piece over here at the front. We can flip that all the way up to where it connects right over here. Go ahead and make sure that is lined up. Next, we'll come to the underneath of the figure. Rotate just this forearm part 180 degrees to where the gaps are facing you now. Same over here. Go ahead, grab that, rotate that around. So now we want to push the arms in with this section over here, and you want to make sure it's in all the way fully, otherwise we won't be able to properly do the rest of the transformation. So go ahead and try to get that in and push it in as much as you can. Next, we will bring in the arms over here, and the hands do connect right over here, and the connection isn't the best. Nope. We're now getting to the point where we're probably going to be fighting with the figure a little bit. So we'll take the feet now, and then we will bring this up over here and over there. This forms the back part of the vehicle mode. We can then untab the figure from here and bring it up, and as you can see, that hollowness was for the transformation, and bring it all the way up. This part is a little bit difficult, and you might find yourself fighting again with the figure here once again. Next, we'll do the same over here. We'll untab that and bring that all the way in there, trying to make sure everything lines up properly, and these pieces do connect from the back over there. Next, we'll take this top section, we'll untab that, bring it down, and we're going to try to bring it in all the way over there to the back and make sure that is all connected. Just to figure a little bit, make sure to take this section and flip that down. And here's the vehicle mode for Bumblebee. This is a pretty slick looking vehicle mode, very reminiscent of the B127, and I'll bring that out later for a comparison in a second. It also does seem to be very much shaped like a computer mouse, with these two pieces being the buttons. In terms of rolling, it doesn't really roll too well. The wheels on this figure, while they look cool, they kind of suck, unfortunately. I do like how there's a little bit of panel working going on throughout the figure, which does help make the figure a little less flat. It has a very nice, sleek, and sporty look to it, like the B127 figure. We have the Autobot insignia up at the front. I don't like these holes up over here. I feel like that kind of ruins the aesthetic of the figure a little bit. At the front, he does look a little bit aggressive with the grille and the narrow blue headlights. On the back of the figure, we do have some red taillights, which is really nice. I do like the little bits of detail they managed to add onto the wheels. I do like how the details from the legs appear in the vehicle mode as well. Underneath, compacts in pretty well. There's not a whole lot of detail on it because it is a cheaper figure. We do have like these little bits over here. Here's a quick size comparison of it compared to the B127 Studio Series figure. Aesthetically, I do think the two have some visual similarities. Even from a side profile, they look kind of similar. Here's a quick look at the front for both of them. Underneath, this is definitely based off this figure in some way. Overall, you'd probably find some enjoyment out of this figure, not as good as the Orion Pax Optimus Prime figure, but still a pretty decent figure. However, I think you could skip out on this one as a collector. This is the Human Alliance Bumblebee, a really fantastic Bumblebee figure for the time, and I think it still holds up to this day. Except for the car seats on the arm, that looks ugly as fuck. This figure is from the Revenge of the Fallen movie.
I am directly below the enemy scrotum.
Several other figures were also released under this line. We're going to start off with the figure in its vehicle mode because its vehicle mode looks absolutely amazing. It is a pretty decent size. For example, here we have it next to a Studio Series Deluxe Class B127 Bumblebee, and the difference in scale is massive. And just for fun, here it is next to a Core Class Optimus. Now, I think this figure is probably one of the better looking Bumblebee figures, not just in the robot mode, but also in the vehicle mode, and it still holds up to this day. So starting off, we have some nice translucent blue windows throughout throughout the figure. A nice little fuel tank at the back, the classic stripes going through, Camaro on this side as well as this side. The tires are looking really nice, and this figure does roll very smoothly. From the underneath, the figure looks very compact, and there you can see the faux bot mode license plate. Ever since I own this figure, I have had a lot of trouble with this head constantly popping off, so that is annoying. The front of the vehicle mode looks really amazing in my opinion, just looking super solid, and here's how the back looks with that license plate. Overall, just a super solid vehicle mode, and there is more to it. So one thing that is really great about this figure is that you can open up the doors. It's a little bit tricky to do. Oh god. Yeah, you do kind of have to pull from the mirror a little bit, which is kind of dangerous. But if we open that up, we do have 2 car seats inside. Let me get the other side open. You got one on this side, and then one for the driver's seat. You also get a steering wheel in there, which is a really nice touch. I like how they managed to make the middle of the bot mode sort of like the center console for the car mode. Overall, this is looking really great. Not really any car detail on the inside of the door. The peg that connects this on my figure is broken. There should be like a little peg that tabs these pieces together. Another thing is that this figure is supposed to come with a Sam Witwicky. Since I bought it used, mine didn't come with that. And honestly, it's not that big of a deal. The figure's nothing too special. Instead, we can just shove her in there. That works. In all seriousness, this is a fantastic car mode. Now let's transform the figure so we can get into the robot mode. Also, if you're enjoying the video, I spent a lot of time on these, so if you could leave a like and subscribe, I would appreciate it. First thing we want to do is take out these doors, like so. Flip the figure over, untab the wheels from the car. It can be a little bit stubborn. Take this piece and flip it up. Now we should be able to take the arms, rotate that, and bring it out like so. Now before we bring this arm out, we need to untab the cannon, and now we can come and rotate the arm and just bring it out. And as you can see, the head has popped off.
So no head?
This will be a recurring thing. Let's bring the arms out all the way. Same with this one, and there goes that head again. Come to the back of the figure. This is where we're going to untab this section, bring all that out, untab that from there, and then bring this up and over. Now we can come to the legs, take this back section of the car, pull it and rotate it. Same with this one, pull it and rotate that. Now we can untab this and unfold the legs all the way. Come over here and unfold that all the way as well. Let's make sure the feet are down. Rotate both of the legs around. Make sure that these feet come out. Take this section and flip that up. Let's rotate this the proper orientation and flip that up. Push this part out so that this comes out. We're going to take this part of the head and try to push it out, and this is probably it's popped off. Bring the chest piece down, and this piece does need to tab into there, and luckily the connection on that is pretty solid. Unlike some other figures, we can reattach his head now, which I really gotta fix that. But since because I lack object permanence, after this video I'm just gonna completely forget about it. Let's adjust his arms, move this out of the way so that we can rotate this around, adjust his hands. For this side, let's bring in the cannon, make sure it's connected all the way, and we can rotate this around as well. I think this is the right orientation for the car seats. Let's go ahead and properly adjust these arms. These do need to stick out like that. It does look kind of weird, but if it's not like that, it kind of hinders the arm articulation. And these pieces, you can kind of just have them like that, or you could just kind of bring them in like there. It's not really a big deal there either. We can come back to these doors, and then we can kind of rotate them upwards. As you can see, kind of like that. And this one is being a bit stubborn at the moment. Now for the chest piece, take this, pull it up, and then we rotate it. So same with this one, pull that up, and then rotate it. And we can try adjusting it to where it looks a little bit symmetrical, but it is a little bit off on my copy of the figure. Bring in both of these pieces on the legs. And here's the robot mode for the figure. He looks amazing. This figure still holds up to this day. And even in the robot mode, he is a pretty large size. You can see he's taller than a modern day Voyager class figure. And here he is next to a Dark of the Moon Studio Series Bumblebee figure. It does suck that the figures have gotten smaller over the years, but you know, inflation. These Studio Series figures do tend to be more accurate. I don't personally own the Studio Series 74 figure, but you can see it looks pretty different. Now this back section here, you can leave it up like that, or you could have it laid there. You could also hide it away in here if that is something you wanted to do. I just kind of just leave it out like that. It doesn't really bother me. Also, yes, there is a piece on here that did break off. Now you can take this piece and bring it up, and that is meant for the Sam Witwicky figure. So you can plug him in there and have him sticking out at the back. And there is this little extra weapon you can take out, and as you can see, the head popped off again. The rest of the figure looks really great in my opinion. Now the car seats being on the arm of the figure, I do understand it is for the gimmick, but it does look kind of ugly. They do look very out of place and bulky, not the most aesthetic in my opinion, but it is important for the figure's gimmick. And since I don't have the Sam figure, this works instead. But I do like since because of this, you now have seats for the vehicle mode. So that's a decent compromise. Taking a look at the figure's head, it's a pretty basic head sculpt. I wouldn't expect much from this time. The Autobot insignia is printed on there pretty well. You can see it's kind of rubbed off a little bit. Now this top section of the head is really interesting because, oh, god damn it. If you can get it to go down, this figure does have a few problems. It is his face mask, and that is a really cool addition to have. I don't even think a lot of Bumblebee figures have this, but let me know in the comments below. And the rest of the head sculpt looks just fine. It doesn't feel over-designed or anything. It has this very big bug-like eyes, some nice silver paint applications for the rest of the face. If only it stayed on. On the side of the head, this looks pretty good, and it is yellow paint, and the paint matching is not too bad. On the back, this figure does have light piping. Overall, not a bad head sculpt for the time. It might be hard to see on camera, but this figure is a little scuffed up in certain areas because I did buy it used several years ago. He is also supposed to come with some missile launch pieces that go inside this blaster, and they are also meant to attach here and here as well, but I don't have those, and I don't really feel like it's that big of a deal. This piece does flip out as another weapon for this figure. I do like the extra bits of detail they added here. The chest piece looking iconic as always, just like how it is in the movie. The Camaro logo in the middle, and the rest of the car parts looking really good with all the grille pieces and some headlight detail. Now, when transforming this figure for the chest piece, once you pull them out, make sure to turn it until you hear it click. Now, if you take a look at the figure over here, you have some really nice detail. I love all the gears and the wires molded onto him. Coming further down the figure, you have this really nice sort of engine-y detail for the abdomen area. And further down here, you can see that faux license plate piece. The real license plate for the vehicle mode sort of becomes these knee pads. Now, I do like the way the arms are done on this figure, minus the car seats, of course. This is looking really great, and it's mirrored over on this side with the arm cannon, and it blends in really well with the arm cannon. Now, for his left arm, he does have a hand, but for the right side, it's just a cannon. This figure did not come with an extra hand piece that you could smack onto the cannon of this figure, but I did find some 3D printed files online. Now, another great place of sort of hidden detail this figure has is inside the wheels. As you can see, he has some like gear detail and detail for a chain. If you move this piece out of the way, you can see some nice stuff in the figure. For the rest of the legs, I don't really have a whole lot to say about them. There's not really a whole lot going on in that area. If we turn the figure over to the back, this is how that looks. He does look pretty nice and flush. Now, the feet on Bumblebee, in my opinion, always feel like they're backwards. I always felt like this should have been the front, but that's just me. Really loving the way this guy looks. And I think it only costs $35 at the time. For the articulation, this head, as you saw earlier, is on a ball joint, so you can wiggle it around, spin it around all the way. This gray piece is on a joint, so it can move up and down like that. You can't really get it to look up without the head popping off. The doors at the back are able to move, and you can kind of move them up and down a bit. Arm can go a full 360. They can move out to the side. An elbow bend, you do get a full 360 rotation. These can also move. Hand rotation, you can bring in the hand as well as the fingers. Waist rotation, this kind of gets in the way of that though. Legs can move out to the side, forward, and back. Rotation over there, you do get a knee bend. I will say the knee joints aren't really the most solid, but that could just be because the figure is a bit old. There's also another joint over here. Now, we can move this forward and we can move this back. No ankle pivot, which I did feel like limited some of the posability, and this back toe can move. Overall, decent articulation for the time. Are they shooting off fireworks right now? What the hell are these people doing?
This figure is a maybe if you're a collector. Now let's take a look at EarthSpark Bumblebee.
I do kind of like how the head incorporates that G1 style and the little cat ears, but honestly, I'm not a super big fan of the head though, so like the entire yellow part looks pretty good, I think, but the face sculpt looks kind of off to me. I mean, I guess it's just part of that animated style. The blue eyes on him are pretty nice, and the rest of the face sculpt is pretty simple with his nose, mouth, and that tiny chin piece there. Quick look at the back of the head. There's nothing to talk about here. I do think these shoulder pieces are way too massive for the figure. It doesn't seem very proportionate. It just feels like it's a really obvious part of the car mode that sticks out. Like other incarnations of Bumblebee, he does have the door wings with some translucent windows, so that is pretty cool. Some pretty basic work for the arms, and just like the Optimus Prime figure, the arms are hollow. That does seem to be a recurring theme with these figures, but since it is for the transformation, I can't complain too much. It would be nice if they had some sort of flap, but that probably wasn't in the budget for the figure. And once again, these figures only cost like $20. So now I think the chest piece looks really cool with the racing stripes and the Autobot logo smack dab in the middle. I think it's done really well and kind of gives him a sporty look. Down over to the abdomen and crotch piece, there's a little bit of molded detail and some panel working going on. It does kind of throw me off how this part is black and then this part right here is gray. I'm not sure why they couldn't do it in all one color. It could be how the character is in the show. I haven't seen it. Now, these parts of the legs don't really look the greatest, I think. The sculpt of the doors is done pretty nicely, I think. And on the back of the figure, his entire top section is just folded up, and it is like that for a lot of Bumblebee figures. Overall, the aesthetics of the figure look alright. And here he is next to some other Bumblebee figures. In terms of articulation, you do get a full 360 head rotation. Not a whole lot of up and down movement. These doors can move. This entire section rotates 360. And as you can see, it's on a ball joint over there. And this section is on a hinge joint, so it can move up and down. This part of the arm is also on an individual joint, so you can move it forward and back. Ball joint on the elbow, so you can bring them in and move them around. Hand movement, this can move in for the transformation. Absolutely no waist rotation, which is disappointing.
Disappointing!
Leg can move out, it can move to the side, you can bring it back, but this back piece kind of gets in the way, and this leg piece is on a ball joint. This part can rotate as well. You get a knee bend that goes past 90. This can hinge like that for the transformation, and now it doesn't seem like it's going to go back in. Oh no, what have I done? So like that on this side also. Oh, it's like that. I'm an idiot. The feet can move back and forth, movement right there, and a foot pivot. Here is Bumblebee's weapon. I do think it looks pretty cool. I think the paint applications are done really well. It does also kind of look like a spaceship. Goes on fairly simple, and he looks pretty cool with it. Here's a quick look at the Build-A-Figure arm. I do like the paint quality. Well, I was gonna say, I think the paintwork on here looks cool. Now for the transformation, which is fairly basic, let's just straighten out these doors at the back. We'll take the hands and bring them into the arms. Same with this one. Go ahead and fold it in. We're going to take the arms and fold them in like this, and then just get it underneath this part of the car. Same with this one. Go ahead and do that. And now we can bring both of these up front, come to the back of the figure, or we're just going to unfold all this. And it can be a bit tricky to do because the back piece does get in the way. That happens a lot too, but on the bright side now I can show you there is some nice detail on the back of the figure. Now let's just get this back on. It might be easier to unfold if you bring this all the way up, and then we can take all this out. Now bring these sections in together, make sure they tab in place. Come down to the feet, rotate them 180. Now rotate the feet 180, and then once we rotate them, we're just gonna bring them in, and it does need to tab into place. There's a hinge joint over here, so that way we can bring this in, and then when you bring it in, make sure it does tab in with the door, like so. Make sure it all tabs into place properly. Go ahead and do the same on the other one, and then adjust everything else in place. Make sure these are down, and you know what? This is close enough.
I don't care.
So the vehicle mode does look pretty cool from this front part. I do feel like these back pieces are really bulky and kind of throw me off. If these side pieces were slimmer, I do think the entire vehicle mode would look better. The racing stripes down the middle are pretty cool looking. All the windows are translucent. I do want to mention that these parts are paint, and I do think the paint matching is done pretty well. He's got blue headlights, some nice grill detail at the front, some minor detail on the back, and the back of the figure looks alright. There is a bit of detail on the wheels. They're not plain like the Optimus Prime figure. He does roll much better than Optimus Prime though. He does have weapon storage. This goes on top right there, and I do think this blends in with the figure pretty well.
This figure though is definitely kind of a skip.
This is the Gamer Series War for Cybertron Bumblebee. We're going to be taking a look at this and the original figure. Let's start with this guy since he's the main review. Here is the figure, and I am ready for war. So straight away, I think the head sculpt on this figure is absolutely fantastic. Pretty game accurate, and I love the way it looks. The blue eyes are done really well, along with the rest of the face sculpt being really good. A quick look at the back, not really a whole lot going on. He does have a backpack, which is pretty screen accurate. I'm very surprised that there's not really a whole lot of hollow bits on this figure, the only part being right over here. He basically has hollow ass syndrome. The arms and shoulders are looking not too bad. You do have some tiny amounts of detail on this figure to make the figure stand out a bit, but not a whole lot. This part on the hands is yellow paint. You can tell, but the paint matching is done pretty well in my opinion. Now onto the chest piece. I'm still really not a big fan of it. Maybe if it was angled down a bit more, it would look better, but personally to me, I just don't like it, especially when you look at it from the sides. It does just seem very hollow. And I'll compare it to the chest piece of the original one in a second, but first let's look further down the figure. The rest of the sculpt work on the legs look pretty alright, but I am gonna go on a big rant here, so get ready. It is ugly having these hinges out, which is necessary for the transformation, but it's still ugly. The wheels are on the inside of the leg facing each other rather than being in the center like they should be in the game. Now he does have some basic detail on this side of the legs, but honestly it feels like it should be on the inside. With the way they designed the figure, the legs really seem like they're backwards even though they are supposed to be this way. I really don't like how this side looks compared to this side. But anyways, rant over. In terms of the articulation for the figure, the head can move up and down. You do get a full 360, which is nice. These arms can move out and you get a full 360 there. Bicep rotation, elbow bend. This can hinge in for the transformation. The leg can move out, it can move back, decently far out to the side. You get a pretty good knee bend, and that's it. There is no foot articulation on this figure. I mean, this can hinge, but that is for the transformation, so it doesn't really count. And yeah, this can't move either, so that is pretty unfortunate. In my opinion, this figure is pretty weak so far. I'm definitely not 100% sold on this figure. The transformation process is kind of a mess. This back piece tends to fall off, as well as these pieces right here, mostly during the transformation, and it's very annoying. But now let's take a look at the original figure. In my opinion, so far, this one definitely seems a lot more accurate to the game. Unfortunately, I don't have the blaster for it, so we'll have to skip past that. I literally picked this up the other day at a local toy shop for like $10. The sticker is still on here, so let me remove that. No. Get out. There we go. This figure is also a lot more slender and lanky, and then since this is an older figure, the feet don't really stay in place, unfortunately. But looking at the head sculpt on this one, it's also done fairly well. And then this is not a spot for light piping, it's just a black stripe. The chest piece on this figure is done a lot better in my opinion. It's a lot slimmer and more appealing. This figure does also have a bit more detail on it and some more paint applications, but like just a tiny amount more. Here's a closer look at the arms, and the wheels on this one do have some translucent red plastic, and on top of that, you do get these cool energon blades. I think these look really sick, and it
reminds me a lot of Wreckage's blade. It is unfortunate that the new figure does not have these. Also, this section underneath the belly is sculpted really well. The legs on this one do look a lot better than the legs on the new figure. These definitely do look a lot cleaner and accurate to the game. You do have some metallic gold over here and some really nice sculpt work. Now, before we get to the comparison, let's do the articulation on this guy. He can move up and down in a full 360. Arms can move out. 360 arm rotation. It's a bit awkward to do though. Bicep rotation, a really good elbow bend, and this one does have hand rotation. Waist rotation, legs can move out, they can move back, out to the side, leg rotation there, and a knee bend, and then this can move back and forth. Now, comparing the figures side by side, this one is definitely a lot bigger. You can also see the shades of yellow are very different. I do much prefer the red colors on this one over this figure. I think the head sculpts on both the figures are very good. This figure does not have that black piece on the chest, which is accurate to the game. Here's a closer look at those chest pieces so you can see the difference. These little wheel sections on the arms are also done very differently. And then here's a closer look at the legs of both of the figures. I definitely think the legs on this are a lot better. I am slightly leaning towards favoring this figure over this one. And then here's a closer look at the back of both the figures. And while this figure is good in robot mode, the transformation on this is also pretty shit, and it is kind of a heavy shell former, which is unfortunate. The Gamer Studio Series figure comes with 3 weapons. You have a sort of more cannon-like weapon. It's got some really nice sculpt work to it. And then you get a more rifle-like weapon. And lastly, you get a really neat-looking sword. To apply the weapons, you just remove his arm, and then you can stick any one of the 2 weapons on. And unfortunately, this figure has no ass placement for the arm, unlike the Optimus Prime figure. But what you can do is, we can take his arm and attach it on there, and that's a fun thing you can do with it.
You probably don't recognize me because of the red arm.
Now for the transformation and vehicle mode.
Like I said earlier, it does kind of suck. The first thing I like to do is rotate the waist around. Next, let's bring this out, bring in the hands. So that way we can rotate these forward like that. Same with this one, bring the hand down, rotate it forward, just like that. Next, we need to straighten up these shoulder pieces. Now this section can be a bit tricky to do. We need to just bring out this chest piece, and it can be a little bit stubborn to do, but once we've done that, now we can take this flap and bring it over and under, and once again, this piece constantly falls off, which is really annoying. Now we're going to take these sections and pull them out, and then adjust all this. Take these arms, bring them into the side. Same with this one. God damn it. Bring it into the side. Once again, make sure this is out all the way, so that way we can move the arms in position like so. Same with this one. Just bring it in place, and make sure it just tabs in properly. Now down to the legs, make sure they're like this, so that way you can bend them 90 degrees, and then flip this over. Same with this one, and bend the legs. That way we can bring this out, bring this one out as well. Now we can put, and now what we need to do is to make sure this piece is underneath this, which can be kind of annoying to do.
God fucking damn it. Moving on.
It's a little hard to see, but you wanted something like that. Now we can move these legs into position. Same with this one. And now kind of just tab everything into place. This section into place. Tab that in. Let's readjust this. Make sure these pieces are flipped over. And then also bring these in. So now we can bring down this back section and align everything into place until we get a good vehicle mode. And finally, here is a vehicle mode for the Gamer Studio Series Bumblebee. It is a very solid vehicle mode, even though the transformation is kind of wonky. I haven't been able to get this back section to tab into place properly. And then sometimes I've noticed this piece can pop out a little bit, but it seems to be fine right now. But the rest of the figure does look pretty good, with the black windows and the red lines going out throughout it. The front of the car mode also looks really great. Here he is from underneath if you want to take a look. He looks a little bit dead right now. All the wheels move individually, and it is sculpted really well. There is weapon storage on the figure. You can place all the weapons back over here, but what the instructions say is to place this up top, this goes underneath, and the sword goes in at the back. Now the transformation on this guy is pretty bad, arguably a lot worse than this guy. So one of the first things to do is bring out these pieces to the side and then bring this foot up. Do the same here and bring that up. Make sure these wheels are out so that way you can push the leg in. Same with this one. And this figure is so loose and all over the place. Might be because of age, but it is really annoying to work with. And once you've done that, we can just kind of leave the legs there for now. Next, we can unfold this and bring it all out. Flip over the head, and the clearance on this is pretty bad, so you kind of got to force it a bit. Once we've done that, we can bring the shoulders in like this. Same with this one. Rotate it like so, and then bring the arm here, so that way we can tab these into place. So go ahead and do that. Same with this one. Go ahead and bring it into place. Now just kind of adjust the arms into place. Bring this out to the side. Same here, and then this will tab up front. So now we can go to this back section, fold this down so we can bring this out, align it up into place. And then this section is pretty annoying. We just kind of need to fold the legs in there. Untab this section and bring this up in here. Same with this one. And then these do need to tab into these pegs. But what I like to do is get these tabbed into place,
because if we focus on that, it should get the other pieces in place.
I'm gonna go ahead and adjust this off camera real quick. And then here is the final vehicle mode. If you don't get these feet lined up properly, then these won't go into the side. Also, fuck, it doesn't seem like this is tabbed in all the way. You know what? It's fine. It is fine. I don't care enough to fix that. Let's just take a look at the vehicle mode. It does look pretty nice. He also has the red lines throughout him, and then the red plastic on the wheels really do help bring it out more. The tinted translucent windows are also a nice touch to the figure. Overall, it is pretty good. It's just the transformation is kind of a mess. And then side by side, you can see this one is definitely a lot bigger. This one kind of feels like a chibi-fied version of this figure. How many times have I said chibi-fied in a video? Leave a comment down below. But here's a comparison of the two figures. Once again, this is impossible to just tab into place. Whatever, I don't care. You can see a lot of the sculpt work is different on these. While the transformation does suck on both of these figures, if you can do it properly, the vehicle modes do look pretty great.
I think you can skip out on both of these, honestly. Now let's take a look at the Studio Series Rise of the Beast figure.
Now, looking at this figure, it does look very, very nice.
Now, while the head sculpt doesn't look too bad, the eyes look horrible. I'm not a big fan of the color of paint they used.
But a closer look at the head sculpt, you can see that little area for the Autobot insignia, and I think the mechanical nature of his face looks great along with that silver paint. And yeah, the head sculpt is really nice.
Here's a look at the back. There's a little bit of detail.
Underneath that in this area, you can see some stuff going on as well. I'm gonna be honest, I have no idea how to describe that.
You have that bumper at the top, which we will see more in the vehicle mode of the figure.
You have that chest piece, which is similar to Bumblebee in the other movies. And this is one of the better looking chest pieces I have seen on a Bumblebee figure. It looks very sleek and clean along with that nice silver paint going through it.
The arms have a nice yellow molded plastic with some silver paint on them. You can see a little bit of detail in this area. It really does look very nice and mechanical.
You have a little bit of extra detail on the shoulder piece. I really don't like how the hands are molded onto the arms so they have no rotation of their own. And then you can see some of the paint applications on the hand. Unfortunately though, it has bled over into other areas of the figure. This seems to be a recurring thing with Hasbro figures because my Legacy Elite 1 has the same issue as well. Get your shit together, Hasbro.
You have some nice intricate detail in the abdomen area. Down over to the legs, pretty basic over here. You have some of the silver paint. More of the legs down here with a really nice sculpt and a little bit of silver paint and some detail.
You see that? You see the little detail right there? Down over to the feet, it kind of looks like he's wearing shoes in my opinion. You can see some of the simple sculpt work it has on this side as well as the other side.
Now the figure has a good weight to it, which is really nice. If we take a look at the back, you can see some more inside car details on the doors. A very, very flat backpack, which is nice.
Further down to the legs, not too much to say there. Down over here are the feet, which form the back part of the vehicle mode. Kind of like how G1 Bumblebee's feet were the front of its vehicle mode.
There are a few hollow spots throughout the figure, mainly on the arms and a little bit on the legs, but not too much, which is really nice. For articulation, the head can move up and down. You can spin it a full 360. These little chest pieces can move, mainly for the transformation though.
They can also be a little bit difficult to work with. The arms can rotate, but this does get in the way unfortunately.
The arms can also move out about that high and rotate over there. There's also a elbow bend. And like I said earlier, the hand is attached to the arm, so there is no rotation there. These doors can move. I really do wish this could move back so we could get more of an arm rotation. You get some rotation at the waist, which can go all the way around. These legs can move out to the side. You can bring them forward, and you can bring them back. You can rotate the legs like so.
And a 90-degree knee bend. The feet can't move forward or back, which is unfortunate.
But you do get a side-to-side pivot, which is nice.
As well as a full 360 foot rotation.
You get his blaster, which has a really nice mold to it.
Not as good looking as the B127 version, in my opinion. You can see the molds of the two are very different. This one is also cast in a yellow plastic and then covered in paint. I definitely think I like this one a lot better.
Next, we have the sword, which is kind of disappointing. It's all yellow plastic, and it really would have been nice to give it some paint, which I might do on my own. This sword tabs into this side of the arm, and it really does just blend in with the rest of the figure because of the lack of paint. The blaster just plugs in right over here into the hand, and there he is sporting both of his weapons. There is also weapon storage at the back. Basically, you can place this right over there, and it seems like it stays in place pretty well. For the blade, just tab it in on there like so, and I'm really surprised the connection isn't loose on either of these. And since I kind of just skipped over the box art, here's a quick look at that. You have Bumblebee looking really cool over there. Some of that artwork on the side, and here's the other side. And then here's a look at the back of the box. And then here is the backdrop of what seems to be a volcano.
I feel like that's kind of obvious.
And then it's kind of hard to see, but you can see some of the tire tracks.
Here he is next to other Studio Series Bumblebee figures. He's a bit taller than B127 and a bit shorter than Dark of the Moon Bumblebee. And in terms of design, I think this one looks the best, especially when compared to the Dark of the Moon Bumblebee, which I do like, but next to this, it looks kind of like a jumbled mess. Here he is next to a KO of the Studio Series 38 Optimus Optimus Prime, RC from the Bumblebee movie, Starscream from the Bumblebee movie, and Human Alliance Bumblebee. Side by side with the B127 Bumblebee, you can't see a lot of the differences between the two figures. This one obviously doesn't have the door wings on it, and it has a battle mask.
The back on this is also much less appealing than the one on here, and compared to the Dark of the Moon Bumblebee, you can see the head sculpts are vastly different. They do share some similarities, like the chest pieces and the door wings, and the chest on this looks much better than the one on here.
Now luckily the transformation on here is very easy to do.
First, let's go back to the legs.
What you want to do is flip these pieces out on the legs. Now we can rotate the feet and bring them in, rotate this piece like so, and then get it to line up in place. Now go ahead and just do the same exact thing on the other side.
Now we can bring the legs together, which can be a little bit tricky.
The best way is to hook that piece and then snap it in. Now what we want to do is fold out this entire back section.
So now that we've done that, we need to do the chest pieces, and we're not going to make them straight like that. We're going to bring them down
to where both of these pieces are angled like this. It's very important, trust me. Now we just untab the chest. Now we can untab the chest piece, bringing it up so that way we can connect the top piece to the front of the car, and then just push it into place.
And that's why these pieces need to be angled down instead of straight, so this would be easier to tab in.
To finish up the top section, we just need to tab it into place. Now close both of the doors, make sure that head is straight, and now bring in the arms like so. Now rotate them to where they're facing like this, make sure that's orientated the right way. Bring in the wheels and snap them into place. Lastly, bring the arms down.
And there is a place for them to tab into. And here is the vehicle mode for Bumblebee. It is a really nice looking vehicle mode.
I really like how it's basically just an off-road version of what we saw from the 2007 movie.
I like the extra bumper pieces here. You have some very nice headlights going on. You can see a bit of the grille. You have this reinforced piece here with some lights up at the top. You have the classic two stripes going through the top of the car mode. Some nice rugged off-road wheels. Now I don't like how the arms stick out at the bottom. It looks really ugly in my opinion.
It really ruins the side profile of the car mode, and it is the worst thing about the figure. At the back you have this thing, I don't know what it's called. And here at the back of the vehicle mode you have this nice little reinforced piece. This section is mostly black with some red taillights.
Here's a quick look at the underneath of the figure, and this is a very nice vehicle mode, probably one of my favorites for Bumblebee, minus this part right here. Now there is weapon storage. The blade will tab into this section right over there,
and for the blaster you just put it on the back, and they do hold in place. One issue I do have with the vehicle mode is that this part right here isn't completely flush.
You can see there's a gap over here and a gap between the windows.
I think this is probably the best one you can get. Let me know what you think in the comments below.